Hello, everyone. We're glad you're here. Welcome to Lipedema Wellness Conversations with Gail. That's me. And friends, our friend tonight is the amazing Carrie Reedy. Um, this is not her first time with us. Many of you recognize her. Make sure that in the comments that you send her some loving. I haven't
Ah,
talked to her. I haven't talked to her in quite a while because
mm.
she went on this thing called vacation, and then I went on this thing called, uh, I don't know,
You've been
May.
on a surgical adventure, haven't you, with your
Yeah.
family?
Yeah. So I went on this thing called May, where my husband had open heart surgery, and then a couple weeks later he had a pacemaker put in unexpectedly, and we're just we're just riding it. So um and because of that, I wasn't able to talk to Carrie very much. And so I'm really excited actually to get to
I've
talk to
missed you,
Carrie.
Gail. I've missed our chats. I love talking to you. I think you always have so much enthusiasm and encouragement for our community. And I sort of feel like something's been missing lately.
Yeah. And it really has. One of the things that I love to talk to Carrie about is what she does, how she helps our community and why she's involved with our community, um, and why she's involved with me.
Yeah.
And how we met. Carrie is from Perth, Australia. Nutritional medical nutritionist, works with functional medicine often, and helps um, many clients who have lipedema. She helps them straighten out their nutritional quandaries, I guess. We all have questions about what
Mm.
what's like right now. Kathy Patton says, "What's the best foods for
Yeah.
lymphedema?" Lymphedema. It's an interesting topic. How do we eat to make sure? We're always trying. In our brains, those of us who are mostly female keep thinking, I need to lose weight. I need to lose weight. And then we end up finding, oh, lipedema. Maybe that's why I can't lose weight, right?
Mm.
And we have to go a different direction. Instead of thinking success shows up on the scale, maybe
Mm-hmm.
we have different ways of finding success. So,
Do you know, I've actually just got off a call with I just had a coaching call in the hour before we're talking today, and this is a message that I say very regularly to people that the scales lie, especially with lipedema. The scales don't tell the full story. We can eat something that's inflammatory to us and put on pounds overnight, and then they take days or weeks for those pounds to come off because of the way that our particular body is responding to various either things that we're doing or things that we're eating. And I think we need to kind of move away from that being our number one metric. For me, what I would consider to be the most important metric with lipedema is if we can get an eating regime that is helping to minimize the pain and the inflammation that we're experiencing, and even if all it does is stop the progression of any further development of lipedema, then I think we're on the right track. There's so much societal expectations around, we should look this way or we should be this way. And it's not always the case. We're genetically different. I don't come from what you would call a skinny family. Sorry if any of my family ever listen to this, they'll be like, what? We are
what do you
skinny.
mean we're not skinny? Well, I can tell you, we are not a skinny family. And we have this thing called, well, I guess I do, um, in this the the curse of the big ugly man feet. Not only are we not skinny, but we have like monster hands, monster feet. And I look at pictures of me with people who I think when I'm talking one on one with them, I'm like, I'm not even concerned that we're different sizes because I don't see different sizes. And then I see a picture and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a giant. Like, they're like elves. They're these tiny little people. And here I am. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a giant.
You're really tall, aren't you?
I'm not really tall. I'm only 5'9". That's
Oh,
not that tall.
that's
I'm
tall.
not less than Keith tall at 6'2". I'm Gail Straker tall at 5'9", but I'm also not Catherine Seo tall at like 5'1". So, I looked at the first time I met Catherine. Well, I shouldn't say the first time. The only time I met Catherine Seo in person, my first words were like, "You're so tiny." 'Cause she was down. I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And here's his head. I wanted to scrunch her. Anyway, enough about that. But yeah, like you say, you're not skinny people. We're big pants people. Um, I know someone says, "Oh my, I didn't know Catherine was so short." Shh,
Now we've spilled
Catherine,
the beans, haven't we?
shh, Catherine, if you're watching this, sorry. Anyway, um,
I think
well,
it comes down to like there's a societal expectation that everyone should fit into this sort of perfect little, this is how tall they should be, this is the size they should be, this is all of these aspects of their person. But we are so unique. Look at us when you get a group of 100 people together. You've got short, you've got tall, you've got round, you've got skinny. And you know what? I actually, as a nutritionist, I have clients that come to me and it's like, please help me put on weight. So, like it just is, we are all so different. We are all so unique. And we need to accept at some point that, this is just us. This is our genetics, our biochemistry. And what we can do is look at ways to sort of manage some of the aspects of this that might cause us some grief. And that particularly, to me, in my mind, with lipedema in particular, is the pain and the swelling and the things that make our life a little bit more complicated in terms of mobility and being able to get around and do all those things that we want to. I'm just seeing Marilee's comment too. Don't scrunch with Catherine's head. No, she's got a busy month coming up, hasn't
yeah,
she, with Lipedema Awareness Month? We need her
yeah.
to be on the A game.
Don't be scrunching your head. I know. And I do have to say, Facebook user says, totally have no idea how big I am until I see a picture. Me either. The wonderful thing about Zoom is it's only from here up. And so this is me and this was Catherine. We're all the same height on Zoom, right? And then when you see somebody, you go like this to look at less than you go like this to look at Catherine. I mean, because you think they're a full foot difference, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
wow, it's amazing. But I cannot take credit for big pants people. That comes from Kevin Meaney, um, a, a tremendous comedian who's no longer with us. But Kevin Meaney, his whole skit was on being, we're big pants people. And I loved it. And so I'm sorry, I cannot take credit for that comment. I just am repeating a line from somebody I truly adored as a comedian. So, okay. Yeah, so we have expectations,
Mm.
societal norms, and yet which one of us fits into societal norms?
And I reckon even if you found a person that actually fit perfectly into those norms, there would still be something about them that they'd be like, I wish I could change this. I don't think any of
Right,
us are satisfied because of some of those societal norms that have been sort of
right,
expectations that have been put on us. And it's a big leap to get to that point where you're like where we're like, oh, I totally accept myself for who I am. I don't think we can just talk ourselves into that, but it certainly is part of the journey. And especially with lipedema, I think coming to a degree of acceptance, and sometimes we have to go through a grief process when we get a diagnosis like this. There's a whole lot of what ifs and fears and other aspects to this. But at some point, as we move through that grief, we get to a place of, ideally acceptance that, this is what it is. There's some aspects of this I can change. There's some aspects of this that I can't change. And I can only really work in that realm of the things that I can change and that I have some control over. And I guess my piece in that is talking about the food aspect, that we certainly have control over the times and the things that we put in our mouth. It can also be control over, am I going to wear compression? Am I going to use a pneumatic pump if I can if I have access to one? What other conservative aspects of this treatment am I going to involve myself with? Can I get to a pool? Can I do this? Can I do that? That we have some control over, but we, again, don't have total control over it because we have family responsibilities and financial commitments and all of these other aspects. So it's just about working out where is our opportunity in all of this to make a difference, and then trying to work there, but doing it with kindness and understanding that we're probably not going to get it right 100% of the time, and that's okay too. We're human, and sometimes life just gets in the way of our biggest hopes and wishes, and we just have to go with it.
Right. And sometimes it's one little tiny small steps. I know we say this all the time, baby steps, baby steps. But sometimes it's just one baby step for a very long time, because it's not easy. It's not easy to make solid life changes, feel good about them. You want to see results from them, or you get discouraged and you start to lack motivation. And I know for many of our community members, sometimes they just go, oh, I fell off the wagon, and they're so sad. But getting back on the wagon or doing one thing they used to do might be all it takes. Just to give them that feeling of success. When you are dealing with something that's long term, that's the rest of your life, sometimes, just like you say, give yourself a little bit of grace.
Absolutely. And if it helps anyone on the call, and this was well before I knew and understood about lipedema, but I have an autoimmune thyroid condition, and I had a practitioner, 2 years, they were telling me, you need to go gluten-free for your thyroid condition. And it took me 2 years of every time I went there, they're like, are you going to do this? And I was like, I have 5 kids at home. We financially, we have to fill up on bread and pasta and, all of these things. And eventually I think she just sat me down. She's like, just do it for 4 to 6 weeks. All I'm asking is 4 to 6 weeks. Don't feel like you've got to make this decision for the rest of your life. And that took some of that pressure off, because I thought, well, I can probably do 4 to 6 weeks. That seemed reasonable. I think it was that fear of having to give up something that, I loved forever. It was sort of almost a grieving process. And, I think that was very wise advice. She said, just do it for a period of time and then stop and assess. And I remember probably about midway, but in week 4 or early into week 5, I remember just waking up in the morning and getting up and being like, oh my gosh, I actually have energy today. Like and all day I was it was like I buzzed, like, wow, I can do this and do that without feeling like I need to go and lay down or, curl up on the lounge where my kids are playing on the floor. And I look back and I laugh. I'm like, wow, that was 2 years I lost that I could have been feeling that way. But I think this is part of understanding when you have a chronic health condition, you've already given up some things, and it is really hard when someone says, and now you've got to give up more things.
Right.
But for me, it was giving up one thing to actually gain a whole lot back. And I think if I hadn't been through that experience myself, I might have a harder time encouraging people in our community to give up things like sugar and potentially those grains that are, they're probably the foods that are the most inflammatory for us. And we know that with lipedema, there's an inflammatory driver going on behind all of this. So, in terms of if you were just going to do one intervention, like if you thought, well, everyone in the community talks about, I should try keto, I should try this, I should try that, I would say just try and give up sugar. Just sugar in its, in candy, in soft drinks, in desserts. Just do that first and see how you feel. Usually people come back to me and they're like, after a week or so, they're like, oh, wow, I can actually feel it in my body. I can feel the difference when I'm not eating all of that sugar. And that doesn't mean you're cutting out any of the other things, but just, start there and see how you feel. And sometimes that's enough motivation then to think, well, if I've gone from where I was feeling pain here to here just by removing sugar, I wonder what would happen if I took the next step. And so rather
Right.
than saying go from here to here, we're just, like you said, those baby steps, and starting to see improvements encourages us to, do more and more down the track. But we have to do it within our own capacity, within our own circumstances. Someone's just said in Facebook, yeah, sugar is huge. It cuts the cravings too. Yeah. Do you know, if there
And
was one thing I could wish for everyone, is that we could get rid of the amount of sugar in our food supply. And
and
that's across the board. Yeah.
right. And Carrie, an interesting thing is you said do one simple thing. You're not saying do one easy thing.
Oh, no,
It's
no,
just
not easy to
one.
sugar.
No, it is not easy to give up sugar. It's one thing. And if you can't give up sugar, there are there are steps to
Mm.
take where you can say, okay, I'm I'm not going to drink sugary drinks,
Yes, and that again, this is
right?
about even breaking that first step down into even smaller little steps,
Right,
and even if that means swapping out a sugary soda for one that uses stevia or some other sort of, I don't like the artificial, like sucralose, aspartame, those sorts of sweetened ones. But even if you have to swap it out for something else first and just take these baby steps, and you start to feel some difference in yourself, then it can be a bit of motivation to say, okay,
right,
I've mastered that. What's the next step? And then what's
right.
the next step?
And you talk about how you woke up one morning and you just got out of bed.
Mm.
I remember in 20 I started this whole journey in 2017, and I remember that summer beforehand laying in bed staring at the ceiling and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be tired the rest of my life, and I'm only 57
Mm.
years old.
Mm.
I'm so exhausted. I'm going to be tired the rest of my life. I didn't give up grains to not be tired. I decided to give up grains because I had heard that um, the grains were could cross the blood-brain barrier, the right,
Mhm.
and that it was that's why my brain was so foggy. And
Mm.
so I gave up grains because it was like there was stuff in there, but it was all like it had cotton balls in between everything. And so I thought, okay, I'll give up grains again because I'd given up grains before, but I didn't give up rice or beans or quinoa. I just gave up flour. I was still eating oatmeal and corn, and you know, I
Mm.
and I thought I was doing such a great job with it, which I probably was. And
Yeah.
I didn't give up sugar. So my husband would buy cupcakes and he would scoop a big bunch of the frosting off the top and hand it out to me. I'm like, "Oh yeah," because I was giving up flour.
Mm.
Wheat. So I wasn't giving up sugar. I gave up wheat, and it was so difficult. But when I gave
Mm.
up grains and sugar together, for me, it was like I remember getting up and going all day and not thinking about it. And then
Mm.
when I went to bed going, I didn't take a nap today. Why didn't I take a nap today? Right? And
Yeah.
it was probably around week 5.
Yeah.
I'd had like
It
5
can take that long for to
right?
really notice the changes. Yeah.
And yeah, and then I realized, and when I got out of bed the next morning, and I've told you this before, I sitting on the pot and I'm looked down at my ankles and I'm like, my left ankle's not swollen.
Mm.
And I told you before, my ankles are my tell. When I
Mm.
eat something that I don't really want to eat, but I eat it anyways because I do, because of the cravings or the emotions or whatever I'm doing. And I can tell within a day or two, I got
Yeah.
that like gushy ball hanging around down by my ankle. And I'm like, yeah, that there, yep, I'm paying the price,
Mm,
so it's giving up those grains. I had to give up all super starchy foods and sugar. I
mm,
had to, because a baby step, I couldn't succeed to the next step for me. But that's how I
mm.
had to do it, right? Um,
Because those grains do actually turn into sugar in the body too. And so, if we're
yeah,
particularly insulin resistant, for instance, then, there are some flow on things. And maybe the first step needs to be a bit of a bigger leap. But,
right,
for all of us, it's about working out what what is the right next step for us. And I think
right.
that's where we kind of have to keep having curiosity, don't we, about,
And
oh, I wonder what
yeah,
else we could try. I think especially for us in the lipedema community, because we're still such a grassroots movement and trying to sort of navigate all of this. We're all experiments, aren't we? We're experimenting on ourselves, and then we share what we've learned with the community, and this is how this knowledge and awareness keeps sort of moving forward. So yeah, I think it's exciting.
yeah,
It's an exciting time, and where we're going to be in another 10 years is, to me,
right.
I'm happy to be here as part of the journey, because we're all learning together from each other, and we'll keep learning.
Well, and one of the things that we're doing for Lipedema Awareness Month is we are celebrating it by getting together with people. But
Mm,
before we talk about that, we had a question here from Kathy Patton. It says, if most of your weight is from swelling, does still eating the right foods still help?
mhm.
And sometimes it's not eating the right foods, but finding which food is causing the that you're sensitive to, finding which foods. So so I'm going to post something here. I'm going to put the small group coaching link in a chat, in the comments, because Carrie does run a small group coaching situation.
Mm.
Right?
We do, yes, yes. And I don't know when we're going to run the next one. We haven't kind
Right.
of quite worked that out. But yes, so the small group coaching certainly is something that we offer, where we have up to 6 people together in a small group, and we sort of navigate how to step into a ketogenic experiment. And I often refer to it as being an experiment. We just want to test out how our particular body responds to this, how we manage navigating it, and that can be a really helpful sort of like leap into working out what works for you with lipedema and what isn't. Karen just said small group coaching is great. Hi, Karen. I can see a few other familiar names in as they've sort of scrolled past. I'm like, yay, hi.
And
um,
you guys can reach out to Carrie. Her email
yeah.
address is right there underneath us, Carrie at lipedema-simplified.org. And she's great. She'll set you up. She'll make sure that you've got what you need. But you're right. Trying to find out exactly what we need is not easy.
Sue's actually put a question in here. Can you recommend a food sensitivity test? Gosh, Sue, and this is for everyone. I wish I could. I have tried so many different food sensitivity tests with clients. There's the hair test that a lot of people talk about. I've used those. We've used the blood, which is more like at a cellular level, an intolerance. I've used the blood testing. I've sent people along to an allergist and had them do, where they do all the skin pricks along the arm. There's a one that I used with a client about a year ago that was meant to be I say the ants pants. Sometimes I say these strange Australian sayings. I don't know whether you refer to that, but it's like meant to be the best thing ever. This new fangled amazing thing in
You
terms
said
of
the ants pants. It's
it's
like,
the ants pants.
okay,
Ants don't wear
I'm
pants. I
sorry,
don't even know what that means.
like the cat's pajamas. But when you said ants pants, I put a U in the ant, and I'm like, what's wrong with my ants pants?
No,
I'm just
well,
kidding.
actually, I've always assumed it was ants, but maybe you're right. Maybe it's ants' pants.
My cat's pants.
We'll move
Right.
on from there. Anyway, what
Okay,
I was
cat's
saying about this
pajamas.
allergy test is this was like a $450, food sensitivity test. It was meant to be absolutely the best on the market. And for my client, it came back and said she was sensitive to coffee and peppermint. She's never drunk coffee in her life, will never drink coffee for various different reasons. And she'd already swapped out her toothpaste. She was using a different toothpaste that didn't have mint. And she was like, so what else? And I was like, that's all your test said. And, it was uncomfortable. Like, I felt uncomfortable about it because really we do want it to show us something that we're like, practically we can do. So I wouldn't say there's any test that I feel is absolutely the best. Really, ultimately, the gold standard is testing it out on ourselves. And for instance, if we think dairy might be an issue, we remove dairy for a period of time and then we bring it back in, we test it out and we see how our body responds. There is a new lab in the US, well, it's not new, but it's called Cyrex Labs, and they do a lot of food sensitivity testing that's like next level, where they're looking at all sorts of antibody reactions in the body. That needs to be accessed through a functional medicine practitioner in the US. So as much as I would love to be able to recommend that to people, again, it's very expensive, and still at times the results are ambiguous. It's really ultimately the main foods that I see cause issues for people are grains, particularly wheat, dairy. Eggs can be an issue for some. Peanuts are common. Corn. What else is there? I think I said peanuts, but
So,
it's
soy.
really the common
Yeah.
soy. It's the common ones. Typically, when we talk about keto for lipedema, I think some of the advantages there is that we're actually, for many people, we're cutting out a lot of those main sort of most common allergic reaction or sensitivity kind of foods. We, of course, still do keep in eggs and dairy, but usually it's enough to just see how somebody responds. And if the inflammation goes down, it kind of gives us a clue that there was a food or something in there that's been causing
Right.
the issue.
Right. And as a nutritionist, you're somebody that can help people poke around and say, hey, you might consider this, because some people have difficulty with nightshades. Some
Mm-hmm.
people, have difficulty with histamine. Some people have tree nut problem. I mean, you name it. For whatever the reason, we have some difficulty.
Do you know, an
And
interesting way to think about it is often, what's the foods that I crave the most? And Sue put in a comment, all the yummy stuff, and that's right. Some of it. Sometimes, if we eat a food that our body is intolerant to, we actually get an endorphin rush after we eat them. It's only hours later we start to get the inflammatory aspect of that. And so, sometimes we eat these foods and we're like, oh, these are such feel-good foods, but actually they're not really helping us. And so that can be a way of sort of pinpointing it. If somebody said, there's this one food I could never give up. I could never give up dairy, or I could never give up, this particular, whatever it may be. Sometimes that's enough of a clue to me. It's like, well, maybe we just need to give that one a go.
yeah, yeah,
And it's hard, but it's sometimes you come out the other end and it's like, oh wow. Like for me, giving up gluten was so hard. In my mind, I was like, I just cannot do this. But after, that 4 to 5 week mark, I'm like, wow, I feel so different in my body. I don't really want to go back there. And I've been gluten-free for 15 years and, would never look back, because I know the difference that it makes for me.
right,
Over time, I've added a few other things that I've had to avoid along the way too.
right,
And that's an interesting thing that the immune system does, that if we're eating a lot of the same thing and we've still got a lot of gut inflammation going on, then maybe we'll become intolerant to other foods. But, for the most part, for me and in my journey, and of course, it's my journey that led me into studying nutrition and becoming a nutritionist. It's been just one long experiment of testing things out, and with this curiosity, I've had some amazing experiences. I've had some real duds in terms of testing out a different way of doing things and going, you know what, that just doesn't feel like it works for me. And I you said you use your ankles as a barometer. I tend to use how I feel. If I have energy or don't have energy as my barometer that tells me, this isn't really working for me.
Right. Well, I know that at one point before my ankles were my towel, before they were my barometer, it used to be my right knuckle. This guy right here, she hurts sometimes. I mean,
Mm.
she's bigger than the other knuckles. She's a bit arthritic, and
Mm.
there are times when I'm like, oh, my knuckle aches. I look down at my ankles, and they're all swollen. And I'm like, oh,
Usually it's the motivation then, isn't it? So,
it
when
is.
those things start to happen, we can, with curiosity, it's like, I wonder what I've been
Mm,
doing different lately that things
yeah,
have flared up again. And sometimes
right.
it's just that, I was going to say, the kick up our pants that kind of says, okay, I've got to get back onto what I know is working for me
Right,
and
right.
do that.
And it's interesting because we all have different stories about this.
Mm.
And as we share our stories with each other, we sometimes we go, oh yeah. For example, the other day I was reading a post on on Instagram. I was going to say Instapot. Instagram. You can tell how good I do with social media. But I was reading a post on Instagram, and they said something about, since they had given up, grains and sugars and all this stuff and gotten pretty much totally carnivore, they hadn't had yeast infections or UTIs, urinary tract infections. And I thought, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about those two things that I dealt with chronically for
Mm.
3 decades at
Yeah.
least, right? Well, maybe more, maybe 4 decades since I was in high school. I always had a UTI. It seemed like I was chronic. I had yeah, so many antibiotics. And what would happen is I'd get a UTI, I'd go on antibiotics, and I'd end up with a yeast infection.
Yes.
And I'm like, why am I trading one for the other? And then I'd have to
Mm.
take yeast infection meds, right? And then a couple months later, I'd get a UTI, took that
Mm.
antibiotics, ended up with a yeast infection, then had to take. It was just this rolling cycle. And since 2017, I haven't had a UTI or a yeast infection
Amazing, isn't
or
it?
taken
We very
antibiotics.
quickly forget what our symptoms and what's been going on in the past when we don't have them. And so it always is good to reflect back and realize,
Right.
how far have I come in terms of all of the changes that I've made. It's not just positive in terms of lipedema. There's a whole load of other health metrics that have improved. And often we do
Yeah.
just forget what it was
Right.
like before,
Right.
and it is good to have that
And
opportunity
and
to.
I actually had a doctor's appointment yesterday, and she said to me, she goes, "Is there anything you want to report?" And I said, "I just realized I haven't had a UTI or a yeast infection or
Mm.
antibiotics in 5 years, over 5 years." And she looked through my records and she goes, "Oh my gosh, you
Mm.
haven't," right? And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, after being chronic. And we don't know, we don't remember what we're, all the little things we dealt with,
Mm.
right? Um, and so it's like sometimes we find things like we go, oh, this is a new thing I got to deal with, right? And so we have to deal with it. But sometimes those old things kind of fall away and we forget
Mm.
that we even dealt with them. So having, I know for a fact for me, I know it was when I gave up grains and
Mm.
sugars,
Mm.
because I knew what was going on this summer before I did that. And I also know what was going on when I went to Japan in September of 2017, and I started grain free when I got home from my Japanese trip, my Japan trip, and I haven't had one since. So yay!
Yeah.
Anyway, let me see what we got. So someone says better together. Lippy sisters experiment and
Mm.
find what makes our lives better and better. and help when things are amiss.
Mm.
That's just from our Facebook user friend. And I want to say, I want to talk about some of the things we're doing. Carrie, I know that, are you doing one in Perth?
I am actually.
Okay,
I might be on my own. I haven't had anyone
okay.
register
Well,
to come along.
okay. So let me talk about what we're having going on all over the United States and Canada and New
And
Zealand. We
Perth.
have one, and in Perth we have one. And it is Lipedema Awareness Month, and we are having what we call Tribers at the Table. And throughout June, we've had a weekend. We had three last weekend. Um, Phyllis, not Phyllis, Judy had one in Philadelphia. Catherine had one in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and then down in Florida, RLE had a virtual one, but we're having in-person meetups. We're calling it Tribers at the Table. Let me grab that link so that you can see it. Also, that link is in the invitation in the Facebook invitation to come here. So it should be someplace around this box that you're looking at. But I'm going to put the link here. It's called Tribers at the Table. And someone says, Gail, do you have folks signed up for your Boise group? I have one person. Her name's Gianna and Aunt Sandy. So I've got two. So I'm real excited. I'm taking Aunt Sandy with me. Um, what does it say? Maybe we should join her in Perth. Yeah, go ahead. You
I
guys.
agree. Please come and join me. It's only like a 17-hour plane trip to get to me from anyone in the US. That's a small price to pay to come and have a coffee and chat
Yeah.
with me
Yeah, I
in
know.
person.
It'd be more than a cup of coffee, I have a feeling. Um, so what we're doing is we're getting together, and if you click on that link, um, oh, I see that we have either Kristen or um, Cindy Schutt is here from Sacramento. They're having one in Sacramento this weekend, um, and we're having one in Fort Lauderdale area, Winnipeg, um, Canada. We're having one in Winnipeg. So, you know, click the link that I put in the comments. See where one is close to you. It looks like Sharon can't come see me. She's about 3.5 hours away from me. Maybe I should go see her sometime. So Sharon, send me an email. Um, and but Tribers at the Table throughout June. These are free events. Community members are either opening up their homes. Iris is opening up her home and she's serving she told me it was a classy lunch in Winnipeg. And she's a grand person. I just adore Iris. Um, and but some of us are just heading over to someplace now. Listen to me. I'm grain free. I promise you, I'm grain free. I am. And I'm holding my event at Great Harvest Bread Company. What? What? Well, there's a reason. There's a reason. First of all, I know the owner. She has a nice parking lot. That was really important. She has a little outdoor space that's kind of in the shade. And so I thought, you know what? Why don't I just and it's centrally located in Boise. It's on Fairview. If you know Boise, you know where Fairview is. So it's Boise. It's the street that goes right through the middle of it, and it's not downtown. It's easy parking out. It's actually in Meridian. But here's the thing: we don't have to eat the cookies. They do sell salad, and they sell coffee, and they sell tea, and they sell other drinks. And I thought, yeah, we can just do it. And if someone who isn't grain free wants to come and eat their grain, more power to them. While I go, ew, what are you eating? No, I'm just kidding. But we don't have to eat, and most of them around 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock p.m., whatever. They're around that time. So they're like between lunch and dinner. They're quieter times in the restaurants or the coffee shops. I decided not to have mine down at a local brewery, which, you know, so because then, I would end up participating in that. Um, what? Julie Rosa says, I knew you'd still be yakking after Catherine was through with the because there's another thing that's going on right now besides the tribers at the table. Thank you, Julie. Um, the other thing that's going on right now is called the Lipedema Awareness Month Challenge. And I'm going to put that also in the chat. Um, Lipedema Awareness Month Challenge is just that. It's happening right now. We had our opening kickoff celebration tonight, um, but it officially started tonight. But the actual challenge starts tomorrow. There is still time to sign up. This is another free event for the month of June. It's June 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 14th. And then we will have another one. We'll have a follow up on the 21st and another follow up on the 28th. Notice they're like a week apart. We're going to have a bonus session, I believe, on the 30th. Oh my gosh, Lipedema Awareness Month is always so much fun. And so I'm going to you can still sign up. You can sign up every day until the last day. You can register for this. Now, even though it is a free event, there is a VIP upgrade. If you want to take that upgrade, that gives you the replays. It gives you extra Q&As and those sorts of things. But you can just sign up for the the LAM challenge. It's free. We have special people. Carrie's going to be there on Thursday, U.S. days. I think it's Friday.
All I know is I have to get up on Friday morning. That's all I know.
And like today at the kickoff, we had I think 87 people at the kickoff. It's all virtual. So the Tribers at the Table is in person, and the Lipedema Awareness Month Challenge is virtual. And then this other thing that's happening is some of us who are doing the Tribers at the Table, we're going to open up a Zoom room. So if there's a Tribers at the Table that you want to participate with, you go, hey, I can't make it. Is there going to be a Zoom room? Some are going to have Zoom rooms. I think that I'm going to have to connect up with Iris in a Zoom room for hers this weekend. But if you can't make it and you want to attend one in a Zoom room, reach out to me and I'll see if there's going to be a Zoom feed on any of them. There might not be. I'm hoping that I can find one because I want to go. I want to go meet people too. But who knows? So just reach out to us and see what's happening because it's better together. It's better together. So I've posted 3 things. I've posted Carrie's email, address. I just lost it again. Where's Carrie? Sorry, Carrie. I got these lists over here on this side. I've got this list of stuff. There she is. That I go get to pop up. So I got Carrie's email in there. I've posted a link to the Tribers at the Table. I've posted a link to Carrie's small group coaching. If you're interested, look at that. And I've posted Lipedema Awareness Month Challenge. So we have these 3 things that we're doing. Carrie's involved with all of them. So if you can get to Perth, get to Perth. If you
You're
can get
welcome. You really are. We're very hospitable. I'll even take you to see a kangaroo and a koala.
Oh, I want to go. If you can get to Boise, get to Boise. Winnipeg, get to Winnipeg, Florida, Sacramento. Um, there's one happening in Houston. Um, just know that you're not out there alone. We're all here, and
Exactly.
it's better together. So before we get going, Carrie, I know I've taken a lot. I've talked a lot, but you and me. What do you have to say for yourself?
Oh, I feel like I've already said a lot for myself. I just one thing I would say about our Lipedema Awareness Month. One of the things that I regularly hear from people when they've been diagnosed with lipedema, they're like, and now that I know what it is, I see it everywhere. And part of the reason behind Lipedema Awareness Month is one, of course, to come together as a community so that we can help and support one another. But it's also about raising awareness in the community. There's so many people that also have this condition that don't know it, that aren't getting those conservative treatments, that aren't doing what they can to arrest further progression. And so, ultimately their mobility and other aspects of their life will be impacted. And so, it's about sort of using this month and sharing things that you see about lipedema in your community on Facebook. These sorts of people will see posts and they're like, oh, I'm curious, and we'll learn more. And that's really the beginning of it, because we have to learn about the condition before we can work out what we can do to help ourselves. So I guess if there was one message, it would be, especially during this month, share things that you see. I know you've been doing that on your Facebook, haven't you, Gail?
Yeah, as much as I'm on Facebook in MySpace. Did I say MySpace? Oh my gosh, no.
You're living in like 20 years ago.
Not MySpace. Oh my gosh. Instagram. Oh my gosh, I don't believe I said MySpace. But yeah, I try to keep people informed, and we have something to share. I have something to share. You have something to share. Every single one of us has something to share. We can be inspirational and we can be inspired. We can be
Yes.
motivational and we can be motivated. And we can find answers. And yeah, thanks, Cindy Lou Who. She says, ha ha ha, MySpace. I used to have a MySpace. But it's a great month to share. And there will be things coming out for us to share with our doctors, with our health professionals. We'll be having things to share with our friends, our family, our community. Just keep watching this space. No,
oh, you're hilarious.
I know. I love you. Anyway, so my message to you always is that there's hope. You're not alone. We are here. Keep talking to us. Keep listening to us. Keep sharing with us, because we are listening to you. Carrie, I'm so glad you're here tonight. And if you have a chance, I'm going to count to 10. I want you to hit the heart and the thumbs up, depending on which platform you're on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's see how many we get. Oh my gosh, we got 5.
I don't even know how to do that. How clever are you people that you know how to do that? I don't even know how to make that happen.
Over and you click on the heart. It's okay. We love you. And if you're listening to this replay, if you're listening to this as a replay, keep making sure that you subscribe to our channel and that you share this with whoever you can share it with, especially if they need to hear what we have to say. With that, I'm going to tell you guys all good night. Carrie, don't go away until I've clicked end broadcast.
Oh, okay.
So I love you all